Well, welcome to HR Doctors. I'm super excited today to have Theresa joining me. On Theresa's LinkedIn, her title is I Guide Women in Discovering What They Mean to Do and Empower Them to Find a Fulfilling Career, a career clarity coach. Theresa, thanks for joining me. Tell me a bit about who you are, what you do, who the typical clients are that you serve, and then we'll dig into your process and how you help them.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Brent. I'm super excited to be here today. So yeah, I'm Theresa. I'm a career clarity coach. My background is in recruiting. So I've been working in the corporate world for recruiting for many, many years. While that was obviously that is a great field to be in, but the specific role I was in just was not the right one for me. And for years, I felt unfulfilled and unhappy and drained and just not happy where I was in my career. I was successful. I got promoted, but I just felt like I wasn't working to my strengths and I wasn't doing the work that I was meant to do. And it took a long process for me to figure out, like, what did I really, really want to do? Like, what is the career that makes me happy, where I don't have to start over? How can I transfer my skills to something that lights me up and makes me come alive? And going through that process myself of finding what is the work that I truly want to do, I got so fascinated by career development and by job search strategies and by all things career that turned into my passion and now my career. And now as a career clarity coach, I help women do the same thing. Help them find careers that make them happy, that makes them come alive without having to start over. So to answer your questions, my clients that I usually work with are mid and senior career level women that are usually very successful in their careers, but deep down they feel so drained and unhappy and miserable, but feel stuck because that piece of starting over is really scary, and most of us can't afford to start over financially. And it's hard to see how your skills can transfer to something else that will make you happy and alive. And finding that missing piece is what I help my clients do, and then taking them through the process of making that happen.
And what made you decide to take that leap into starting your own business and the journey into entrepreneurship?
It was really, I was following my passion here. Once I saw, let me start that over. When I left recruiting, or even while I was still in recruiting, you always have people come to you asking for help with their resume, asking for tips in their job search, asking interview questions. So I've always helped friends, family, friends of friends with these kinds of things, and always loved doing it. I was always happy to help. And that organically grew. And when I left my position, it took me a moment to realize that I want to spend more time doing there. But once I found that passion, I really followed it. And then it grew from the job search piece that I started in the beginning on of resumes, interview prep, and all the more things that really go from you already know what you want to do to making it happen. And then my interest started to shift to start the process even earlier of okay, let's start with figuring out what you really want to do, and then start the job search. Because that was often the missing piece that I saw that was holding people back, is they wanted to change careers, but they didn't really know what they wanted to do. And that just caught my interest, and that's what I followed, and I turned it into my career.
Well, that's such a great kind of segue into the 4 pieces that we discussed in our pre-chat about how you have a 4-step process that you take your clients through. There's gain clarity on the career goals, communicate your values in a strong personal brand, networking in and informational interviews, and then implement an effective and practical job search strategy. And as you talk about that vision piece, it's something that has been brought up tons of times in many of our previous episodes, is whether it is from HR or the CEO or from leadership within a business, the pillars of success come from the vision, the mission, the culture, and how they build that foundation. And as someone who's currently in talent acquisition, we work with our clients to help them hire people. We are, and it sounds like a negative term, and potentially it is, but we're inundated with job seekers, and I'm always thankful of it because I feel it means we're doing a great job of posting and advertising our positions, but they're often like misguided in their search. They don't have clarity, they don't have a vision, they don't have a mission, and they don't understand that that in itself creates a barrier for their own employment. They come to us and they say, I'm looking for a job, and we go, great, is there a specific position you want to apply for? And they go, what do you mean? And it's like, well, yeah, like we've got at minimum 60 positions on my company website listed today. And we literally had phone calls where they hadn't been there, hadn't seen the job board, hadn't looked, had no specific direction, and just say, I'm open to a job. And what they don't understand is employers want somebody who is really driven and motivated and has clarity in their goals, because if they do and they align with the company, then there's an anchor there that they're mutually working towards achieving those two things together. And so I think it's really hard for people, which is why I think it's such a great segue into the first piece, is how do you help the women that you work with gain clarity on their career goals? Because it's a challenging process to go through as an individual, as a business. It doesn't matter. It is hard to go through that kind of introspection and discovery process.
100%. I mean, this is what kept me stuck in my old career for so many years, because I was lacking that clarity. And I did exactly what you just described. I just blasted applications out. And when you do that, it's not helping you because you're just blasting them out. You have no idea what you really want. It's none of them are going to stick.
Yeah.
It is frustrating for the recruiting perspective. And I know that as a former recruiter too, that you get so many applications from people who haven't even spend that time thinking, is that what they really want to do and how would they fit into that role?
Right.
So to get to your question of the career clarity piece, so what I developed is a career clarity compass. So we start with a compass, and the idea here is I'm helping my clients find all the ingredients that they want and need in a career to be happy there. The first step I take them through is finding their spark. There's this amazing assessment called Sparketype. It's a 10-minute free assessment, and I have my clients take that, and that helps you articulate what are the tasks that light you up. So for me personally, it's, for example, I love figuring out problems, and that's why I love figuring out the problem of what my clients are meant to do. For others, that spark could come from sharing insights, or from mentoring others, or from performing. So everyone has a different piece that lights them up. And then finding past experience in their career when they've experienced that. So going through their past history, you're like, okay, what were the examples that you felt that spark, that the work that you were doing made you come alive? And then we start noting these under their spark. Then we dive into their strengths. What makes them unique? What do they do better than others? What comes to them naturally? What are the questions that they always get from coworkers? Like, what are they the go-to person for? And that also overlaps with transferable skills. What skills do they have that they can transfer from their current role to some kind of future role? So these three aspects of their spark, their strengths, and their skills give us the foundation of what they're looking for in a role. I also talk to my clients about what are their interests. So I was just recently talking to someone who's really interested in nutrition. So can you look at all the companies that are working in the field of nutrition, to give you one example? Then we go into working conditions. What are the working conditions you need to be really happy? Is that remote work, hybrid work? Is that flexibility? What is it that's most important to you? And then, as you had already mentioned, your values. What do you value, so that we can then find a career that aligns with those values?
Nice.
And those are the 6 different fields that we fill out and get all the ingredients. And then the next step is cooking a meal out of these ingredients. So now we need to go like, okay, great, we have all this on a page that you want and need in a career. How does this actually look like in a career? What job is this? And that's when I have them go on job boards like Indeed, just for research purposes, and have them put in all the ingredients, all these keywords into the job search and hit search. No, not even a location in there. And then we read through the jobs that come up and find the ones that incorporate the majority of what they have on their career compass. And as we go through this process, it really comes down to a handful of job titles that we determine that this will be the direction of the job search.
Nice. That's awesome. My light just died on me, but I have literally the plug right here. So I'm gonna just plug
No
this
worries.
back in. That was bizarre.
It didn't even look darker on the camera.
No, you couldn't tell. Oh, okay, maybe it was a
No.
little unnecessary, but okay, we got that. Hopefully this just does it work while it's plugged in. Let's see if this works. Okay, sweet. Sorry about that. Ivan will just edit that out. Okay, so you've gone through the process of going in. Can you give me the titles again? So there was the spark.
Strengths,
Yeah.
skills, and spark. Yeah. Interests, values, and working conditions.
Nice.
If you look on the oh, I don't know if you wanted to edit that out.
No, that's fine.
I can also say that again. But if you look on the one that I sent you on the career compass top left are all the 6 fields too.
Right. Okay, great. And yeah, I mean, we can share that document out with anybody so they can kind of see what was kind of referenced within. I think,
or I can share my screen if you wanted it on camera.
Yeah, we'll embed it as a link that people can go see.
Cool.
I think in helping people, it really is important for them to understand a number of different factors. If I were to summarize a bit of what you're going after, and feel free to kind of elaborate further, I think ultimately what is most desired by employers is that you have an understanding of the value that you bring to an organization or that you brought to your previous organizations. And then you also understand what's important to you outside of work. And I think a lot of people, especially maybe to the level that you work with, would have a understanding of those things, but maybe haven't articulated them before and haven't had to like outwardly describe them. And one of the times I give back to people to help them understand is what I think across the board, what it takes to be elite in a position. The first thing, in my opinion, is product knowledge. To be elite in any company, in any discipline, whatever it may be, having profound and deep knowledge of whatever it may be, whether it's going to the gym, riding a bike, like writing a book, poetry, or your job, is the knowledge that you have related to that particular task, role, skill, whatever it may be. I think the next thing that is in high demand for employers is aptitude and the ability to learn, right? So that ability to come into an organization, to be able to adapt, to be able to take on, even when we're placing high director, VP, C-level individuals who are extremely experienced and knowledgeable, they still need to be able to come into the organization and learn the ways, the systems, the processes, the feel, the vibe, the culture, all these different things. Skills is number 3, where it's the specific skills to do the job itself. And then motivation is number 4. And I think tying those together from an employment standpoint of what you're ultimately looking to achieve. And I think the motivation piece also ties into the personal values, the outside of work things, the what you want, and how those things all tie in. I mean, I think the most important thing for job seekers to know is that you need to figure all this stuff out first. And I think, I know this is going to go out a month or 2 months down the road when it finally gets published, but we're seeing right now at the beginning of January, as we're filming this, thousands of people being laid off from their jobs in tech right now. And I think a lot of people miss sight of the fact that employment is an exchange of your labor in exchange for compensation with an employer who ultimately is looking to profit from the product or service that they provide to their clients, and that your job as an employee is to help them be more profitable. And so how do they do that? It's by you understanding what your value proposition to them is going to be and how you're going to help them down that journey. And I know that you get into, articulating and communicating your value and networking, but I think it so deeply ties into having a deep understanding of this part of the process, which is figuring out who you are and what you want and what's important to you and like everything inside and outside of work.
Absolutely agree. It is, and that's the piece that I see so many people struggling with, is that they can't communicate that. And that's also confidence. For a lot of people, their confidence or lack of confidence can get in the way here. I have clients who are extremely successful in their careers. And then I ask them what they've accomplished, and they say, like, nothing, I just do my job. And then I dive into and I find out that they managed this huge multi-million-dollar project that would have fallen apart if they wouldn't have stepped in and taken all these steps. And just along the way, they signed another contract and built these amazing relationships. In their mind, it's like, oh, I just do my job. And so they like not having that outside perspective of seeing like, no, this is a big value that you bring. You have knowledge, you have experience, you have this big accomplishment. Companies, that's what companies are hiring for.
Yeah,
But first
100%.
understanding, finding that within yourself and acknowledging like, yes, this is the value I have, and then communicating it. And everything that you also just talked about really ties into personal branding. Like, how do you now portray that to the outside so that potential employers can find you and want to talk to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think, for people who are deeply connected with their own personal vision of what they want their future to look like, the path that they're on, the mission of whatever it is they want to achieve or accomplish, it's much easier to get sighted and focused on what type of employers are going to fit with you. And it becomes easier for you to identify the roles that are or aren't a fit and what's ultimately going to give you that fulfillment, which is a big piece that I think a lot of people nowadays ultimately look for. I mean, whether it's 20, 50, 100 years ago, it was commonplace to work in a company where you had zero fulfillment,
True.
zero enjoyment, and you just worked a job. And now that has shifted greatly. And it's important for you as an employee, I think, as we, again, I'm open to any more further discussion on the point, but I think it's not easy. It's hard. It's challenging to articulate, to write down, to be introspective. But I think it is the most critical piece for anybody who's either entering, re-entering, or stuck. If you haven't done this, it's the part to me that is the reason why you're struggling in the latter stages of the process.
100%. Like, this is exactly, that's what I see. I see clients who've been sending out hundreds of applications, but they don't know where they want to go. And it's incredibly hard to get to a goal if you don't know what that goal looks like. Like, I sometimes tell my clients, like, imagine you want to drive from A to Z, but you don't know where Z is. How long is that journey going to take you? You'll try every road and every which way, and you probably don't end up there for a very long time. But if you get clear about what your destination is, where you want to go, you can come up with a roadmap and get there pretty directly. And it makes the process of getting there so much easier. Like, the moment they're clear, like, okay, this is the value, this is how I back it up, this is where I want to go, that job search becomes almost the easiest part of the process. And as you said, that deep dive, that figuring out first, what do you want to do? That's the hard part. That's the challenge. But everything else then flows and follows once you got through that difficult piece in the beginning.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's a massive misstep in the process that I see. I mean, the amount of times I've seen a post on LinkedIn of somebody who says, I've applied for 1,000 jobs and haven't got any callbacks. It's like, it's the fact that you found 1,000 positions that you could apply to. If you truly had clarity and focus, I don't know if there's 1,000 jobs out there. I mean, I think if I, had to start looking for a job myself, I'd probably be lucky if I could find 15 or 20 companies that I think would really align well with what I'd be looking for. And that if you think of the time, effort, and energy that someone would have to spend to apply to 100 jobs or 200 or 500 or 1,000, if you took that time and put it into getting a deeper understanding of what a fit is for yourself and putting a really strong application together, doing the networking as we'll touch on, and then putting like a practical and effective job search in place, you will greatly benefit from that time invested versus the alternative, which is a lot of misaligned time spent on what seems like high value work that results in a lot of rejection, a lot of stress, and frustration, and creates a challenging, like almost persona to overcome, because you feel beat down and you're not getting where you want and you're missing out on all these different opportunities, and it compounds. It makes it really difficult.
Absolutely. And then even if you do land a job, I mean, if we apply to hundreds or thousands of jobs, what are the chances that the one you end up landing is one that you're actually going to enjoy? So then chances are you're going to be in a position that isn't much better than one that you just left, and then you start over. It's really not a good spiral to get into. And we're not talking about years, right? To figure out what you want to do. Take 2 weeks to really get clear about what you're meant to do. What is it? What careers do you want to pursue? And then start your job search. You'll easily make up for those 2 weeks later down by shortening your job search by a couple of months.
Right. And so on the document that we'll create a link to or share, you've got the compass with the 6 different areas that you focus on. Do you then use that to formulate the way you communicate? So point 2 is communicate your value in a strong personal brand. Do you then take that compass, you take the info and use it to create a summary of who you are and what you're ultimately looking for?
Yes, but obviously more told in a story as of just keywords, but the compass gives us the keywords that we'll incorporate in the story. And I really like thinking about a personal brand, not just as a brand statement but more about what is your story. Starting with what is your superpower? What is your value? Like, what do you want to be known for? And that has to be short and concise.
Right.
And then the next step is, where do you want to go? You got to make it really clear what careers you are looking for, where you want to go, what are you pursuing? And then the third step is backing that up with the accomplishments from your past. You need to back up, what have you accomplished? What is your expertise? What is your knowledge? What results have you achieved in the past that will make you an ideal candidate for those careers that you are saying you want to be pursuing? And then tying all that into your story, that's what personal branding comes down to me.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, again, when we look at resumes, look at applications, look at reach outs, it is about your value proposition that has direct tangibles. And, I don't know of a role yet that you can't tie metrics, accountabilities in, and achieved results into. Some more than others. Obviously, sales maybe more than, say, like an administrative support position where sales has direct, measures, metrics, accountabilities. Whereas an office support position may not, but you could still, even as a reception position, you could tie in what the volume is of people coming through, what the time on hold might be, how efficient, if you ever had any positive or negative, interactions or complaints. Like, you can find ways to tie tangibles in to create an understanding of what you achieved and accomplished in your role. And I think it's probably one of the biggest pieces that is missed by people, which ultimately helps the employer understand what the values you're going to bring and how you're going to help the employer achieve their goals, which is why they will hire you.
Yes, that's the big thing on a resume or any document, any job search, is get away from talking about your duties and what you do on a day-to-day basis. Like, let's say you're a front desk receptionist, anyone can look up what the general duties are. But what have you accomplished? What were the results that you achieved? That's what potential employers or recruiters are looking for. They want to know, what have you done in this role? Not what does any receptionist do in this role? What is it that you have done? And as you said, finding some kind of quantifiable metrics is the key. Is it time saved? Is it money saved? Is it any efficiencies that you created? There are ways to demonstrate what you have done.
Right. And this part of the process is also done in advance of subbing an application over to somebody. This is pre-work. This is before you go to market. This is still refining, getting clear on how you articulate and communicate these things. So you get the initial framework, then you consolidate it.
Ideally, yes. I mean, if there's a job you really want to apply for before we get to that step, by all means. But no, I do consider that as pre-work, especially because such a big piece of the job search is networking, and networking happens in many cases on LinkedIn. So till we don't have a really solid LinkedIn profile that tells your story, that makes it really clear what your value and what your accomplishments are and where you want to go, I wouldn't say you want to reach out to all these potential employers that you're highly, highly interested in, because you want, the moment you reach out to them, they're going to look at your profile and you want them to be impressed the first moment they look at it. So I do consider that pre-work. Once you're clear on where you want to go, once you have your personal brand story down, that's when we can finalize your LinkedIn profile. That's when we can put together a really good resume, and that starts you on a really, really great solid foundation when you jump into the job search.
Right. And so you have on, as your point 3 is networking and informational interviews. You've got to optimize your LinkedIn profile, learn how to connect with people whose work you wish you'd be doing. And so again, that's even more pre-work. You're saying you need to get your LinkedIn profile dialed in before you start to externally communicate that value proposition, because any HR person or, recruiter or business owner, there's a good chance they're going to go and check out your externally visible LinkedIn profile, and that you're missing an opportunity if you haven't taken the time to optimize it and make it stand out.
Yes, absolutely. I felt like I'd be actually curious to hear your side as a recruiter on this and from your HR perspective. But when I worked in recruiting, LinkedIn is the place you look for people. It is where you source people. When people apply, it is often the first place to go to, sometimes even more so than a resume. Or what is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think LinkedIn is a pre-qualifier where you have to have one. I mean, we've worked with and placed many people that don't have any social media. I do feel that if you are a proactive job seeker, whether you're currently employed or unemployed, and you're actively looking to make a change, or you want to continue to build your personal external network so that if you are impacted by a layoff or you do need to make a sudden change, that having to add more homework on top of the already challenging situation, especially if it's a reactive, stressful situation, is doing a disservice to yourself. I suggest people update their LinkedIn all the time.
Yes.
And I think it's an absolutely vital tool, one that I reference and update mine all the time. And I think again, at the crux of all these things are, how much time, effort, and energy are you willing to put into whatever it is that you're working on? What is the level of attention, the level of detail, the level of self-accountability, the underlying behaviors of who you are as an individual? Are you high functioning? Are you very introspective? Are you self-aware? These are things that make people really high functioning in their roles. And if you don't possess these skills, behaviors, or abilities, they're going to come through. They're going to come through as the job seeker who applies with a, limited black and white, non accomplishment orientated resume that's not properly formatted, because they don't, either they don't know, or they don't care, or they don't believe that it's an important piece, when it is. It's your first impression. It's how you anchor whoever it is you're going to speak with. And so I think all of it is a demonstration of who you are going to be if you are in seek of employment as an employee, how you're going to show up, and what it's going to be like to work with you.
Yes.
If you don't have a good resume, how can I trust that the quality of work you're going to put together is going to be? If you can't clearly articulate your value or your vision or your personal outside of work, goals, how am I going to expect you to articulate certain things from my company to external stakeholders? And again, if you haven't taken the time to optimize your LinkedIn, again, I don't think anybody would negatively judge you for not having one at all, but I think it can be negatively viewed if the one that you have does not have an adequate amount of time, effort, and energy put in to make it at least a baseline mid-pack. And it's not crazy to take it and elevate it and make it really stand out and be exceptional.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And as we know, communication skills have always been so important for almost any position out there. And I do think that the pandemic and the change to more remote and hybrid roles has elevated that even more. You have to demonstrate that you're a clear and concise and good communicator. And your resume and LinkedIn profile, all those are tools to already show that skill. Like listing on your resume as a skill that you're a good communicator, but then having 5 spelling mistakes or not having your resume properly formatted or these big blocks of text that no one can really read, those are the ways that you show or do not show that you have a certain skill. Especially, it's a great way to show that you are a good communicator, and already gives you points in any job search.
Well, you've got on here that you optimize your LinkedIn profile and then learn how to connect with people whose work you wish you'd be doing. Why is that something that, I mean, you could put anything there, but that's a critical piece you've planted a flag on under your point number 3. Why did you feel it was important to highlight?
So when we start networking, there's like millions of people on LinkedIn and even more outside of LinkedIn that we could all potentially network with. And I see people doing that. They don't have a clear strategy where they want to go. So they just start talking to anyone, which is not necessarily always bad. But if you really want to reach your goals and have a timeline of, okay, I really want to make progress in my job search, you got to be clear, like, where do I want to go? So there's 2 things we need to identify. The companies that we would love to work for. What are the companies that align with your values? What are the companies you'd be really excited to learn more about? And then what are the positions that you're interested in? And now we got to find the people who do that work on LinkedIn. And that's why I love using LinkedIn, because it's the research tool that we can use to find these people. So I can find if I want to be a community manager at a university, I can find that on LinkedIn. I can look up certain universities, I can type in the title, and I can see the people that come up. And the people that do that type of work, they have the knowledge what it takes for us to become that person or become that employee. So once we start connecting with them, and my advice for networking is always we're seeking advice. We're not asking for a job. We're connecting with strangers. We don't want to go there and be like, hey, are you hiring? No, we're really coming from a very genuine place of, I want to learn how you got to where you are today. And that way of building a network is what ultimately does lead to referrals and job opportunities. But the first step is being clear, who do you want to learn from? Obviously, you also want to go one step above and the hiring managers of the people that do the work you'd love to do. But being clear who you want to connect with and then going to them and seeking advice. Maybe you will learn things that you don't know. You will learn things about the industry. You might learn about certificational knowledge that you do need to gain before you can apply for these types of roles. But they are really the best people to ask and seek that advice from. And in all the cases I work with clients, those are the connections that they say, like, hey, I just talked to so-and-so last week and she's amazing. I heard from another company, they have an opening. Let me bring those 2 together. And that's when people get referred in and hear about these job opportunities they're going to be hired for later on.
Yeah. I think there's a couple really great pieces that have come out of some of our previous discussions with some of the guests on HR Doctors, where LinkedIn is such an amazing tool that has created visibility for us that we didn't have before, right? Like, we can see the companies, we can see the external organizational chart, the key decision makers. I think if your intention as a job seeker is to reach out and get a better understanding of what a fit might look like with a company, that there's a strategy that you need to take to truly be successful. And if you just reach out to people, I do think many people, if you reach out and you come with a good message, which comes into communicating your value, that a lot of people are willing to help. And as you said, if it's not, I'm trying to sell you on hiring me, but I want to, if anything, sell you on taking the opportunity to share with me what you guys look for when you hire, or how you got the job, or whatever it may be. the easiest way to start to build that value is find ways to like give the value back to that individual before asking for anything. If they happen to be active on LinkedIn, engaging with their posts. Caitlin, who was on the show before, talked about a great piece of advice for me that I love sharing is that if you're going to like a post, don't just like it and think to yourself, what did I like about this post and why am I going to like it? And write that as a comment. Like, it's such an easy thing.
Caitlin is amazing.
Yeah, it's such an easy thing, but like something I hadn't really thought about before because I'm liking stuff all the time. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's such an easy thing. What did I like about this? Hey, that's a really cool thing. It made me smile. Or that's a really interesting point. I never thought about that before. It's super easy, but comments on posts get way more visibility for yourself and for the person who posted. It's great for them. And so if you start to engage with either the individuals or the company, and you're going to connect with, like you said, a community manager, the person who hires that, if you've seen something from that university or from that school and you reach out and you say, hey, I saw this really cool thing. It led me to your profile. I had some really interesting questions. I was hoping you could spare 5 minutes. I just wanted to learn a little bit about, I was thinking of maybe applying down the road and what you guys looked for. And I think the most important thing to remember at the end of the day is that, everybody gets reached out to on LinkedIn with emails, with random sales things, with people asking for their time, with terrible approaches. And that you need to make sure you understand that you are asking for their time, that you want their help. And that if they give it to you in reality, they might get fulfillment, they might get some value in return, but you're asking for them to give you and probably not giving a lot back. And so I think it's really important to be aware of that, to overcome those objections potentially proactively and make sure that you're going to try the best you can to give value, because there's a lot of people who reach out with really great intention but do it in a bad way and it doesn't get the results that they're looking for. And if anything, it can hurt.
Yes, absolutely. You have to come from a genuine place. That's really what it comes down to. Like, if you just send the same message to everyone, chances you're not going to get much back, right? But if you took the time to actually read their profile, to find some information about that person and find some kind of common ground, or making them a compliment on a career transition they did, that already shows that you took the time to actually think and show why you want to connect with them instead of just blasting a message to everyone.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yes.
Sweet. So you've got on there that as a final step is implementing an effective and practical job search strategy, optimizing your online applications, identifying your target companies, resume and cover letters, interview coaching. Sounds like a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, this is where most people start their job search. And that's when the job search can take many, many months. The first 3 steps are the ones that a lot of people skip. But if you add these first 3 steps ahead of it, then step number 4 sounds like a lot, but actually isn't that much anymore, because you've done so much prep work already. You already built a network. You know what your personal brand is. You know how to communicate what you've accomplished. So you're starting on such a good foundation that this step is one that comes somewhat easy. But when it comes to job search, what I see the most value is really a balance between submitting online applications and networking. And it's really they always come together. When someone lands a job, it was always a mix between of those two, most of the time.
Right.
Someone who either they heard from someone in their network that there is an opening, and then they talked to someone, then they were asked to apply, and then they went through the interview process. Or they might have first seen that opening, submitted an online application, but then also took that extra step of reaching out to the hiring manager or to the recruiter to show their interest and learn more about it.
Right.
And when these two come together then an application is generally more successful than just an application. So that's as far as the online applications goes. We already talked about being clear on target companies. And there was actually something in our previous step we talked about that I wanted to add when we talk about target companies. Following them on LinkedIn and commenting on their posts is so important. So when my clients, they write their list of 12 target companies, and then I'll make sure that they follow them. And then we go in and look at the posts that these companies put out there. And most companies, like, they post once or twice a week on LinkedIn. There's about, I just did that with a client the other day. Their post had like 500 likes, but 2 comments. So I was showing my client, like, if you now add your comment, obviously more than great posts, but you actually add your thoughts to this topic, or as you said, Caitlin suggested what you liked about this post, this comment gets seen by the 500 people who liked the post plus more. If
Right.
you do that once a week, you have such big exposure, and you're talking directly to the company that you'd love to work for. So that's why having a list of target companies is you have to do that in your job search. And then resume and cover letters, that also ties in with everything else, right? You have to have a resume that speaks clearly about what you have accomplished in your past roles. You have to have a cover letter, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, there's a lot of recruiters, there's always the 50-50, right? Like, some hate them, some love them. But as a recruiter, I used to read cover letters, especially when people have a non-traditional background. This is where I would go to, and I would read the cover letter and want to find out, why are they wanting to make that switch? What interests them about the role? How do they see how their skills transfer to this role? Could this potentially be a good fit? What is your take on cover letters?
Yeah, I feel that, I think if we look at the big picture, that if someone's willing to gain clarity and take the time to go through that, and they figure out how to communicate their personal brand and they start networking, that inherently you should be seeing the value in the process, and that there are things that you can do to elevate your personal brand. And one of those things can be to send a really effective cover letter. I don't know if there's a single company anymore that expects or requires a cover letter or wouldn't hire someone because they didn't send one. However, now that even more is not normal, when you do send one, you can absolutely elevate yourself from the traditional job seeker. And I think, we see a massive volume of candidates for open jobs, many who don't meet the expectations or requirements, qualifications, aren't in the city, many different easily eliminatable characteristics that would preclude them from being able to be considered. And if you do take the time to put one together, and not only do that, but you do one that is truly unique to you, like, nothing irks me more than a cover letter that says, like, I'm highly motivated and work well within a business environment, I'm an effective communicator, and they go on this rant that anybody could get. And it is either just clearly a copy and paste from, here's a cover letter example, or you miss the whole point of what the value of the cover letter is for. And to me, the ones that get you the furthest are the ones where you clearly articulate who you are, what you're looking for, why you have applied for this company, why this company is important to you, why their culture, their vision, their values, and other stuff. Like, I've had people that reach out that, like, have said, hey, I'm in seek of a position. I love sushi, I love yoga, I love dogs. And here's a whole bunch of personal things about me that I feel are really important, because I want those likes to align with the people I'm going to work with. And if the people in your office, hate sushi, hate animals, and aren't active, maybe this isn't going to be a good place for me. Right. And so I really think that, like, as a job seeker, to kind of tie this all together, is that I think a lot of times people apply for jobs and then get dejected by the fact that they don't get it, and go like, I didn't get it because I failed. And I think if you have real clarity on what you want, and you communicate what you're looking for and what a fit looks like really clearly to you, and you kind of run through the steps properly, if they don't call you back, or they don't, interview you, or you don't get hired, then you should see that as like a win. You should see that as like, I eliminated a company that likely wouldn't be a fit. And it sucks if you've identified a company that you would love to work for and they don't see that alignment with you. But I think there's maybe a lot of people that are applying for jobs where they don't have that path. They get rejected and they feel like, oh, I'm just not getting hired. And it's like, no, you're not a fit. whether it's for the job or culturally. And that is better to find out now, or maybe you didn't find it out, but you will find out the hard way later.
Yes, yes. No, I mean, 100%. You'd rather get rejected, even that is very hard to be rejected in the job search process, but it's better that that happens than when you start and then you find out you don't fit in there. This is not the environment for you, and that can be for many reasons. Maybe the management style doesn't work for you, as you said. Maybe you love yoga and everyone else hates it.
Yeah.
Or eat sushi every lunch and you don't like sushi. I mean, it can be these little things, but if your values really don't align with that of the company, it doesn't work. You're never gonna be happy there. So being clear, and hopefully when you do your proper research, you already find out before you even get to the application stage that this is not a company that I would want to work for, or this is a company that values A, B, and C, and this is so important to me in my life. And I like one thing that I hear more and more people looking for jobs with companies that are really environmentally cautious or have a good understanding of social and environmental sustainability. So if that is something, for example, that's really important to you personally, knowing that this is what the company values too, there is a value alignment, and that most likely you're gonna fit in. And on the other hand, if let's take that example again, environmental and social sustainability is really important to you, but then you end up working for an oil company,
right?
You're not going to be happy there. You feel like the work you do is mismatched with what your true beliefs are.
Unless you're working within their environmental sustainability department, where you're working with them to change the way they do things, right? Like it's one of those things, like, yeah, but like it's such a, like there are always ways to find those tie-ins. And I know I went on a bit of a long-winded response, but if I tied in, as I mentioned, I don't think that it is even a requirement anymore. And it was for sure. I think if I look from a recruitment standpoint, and especially as an external agency where we're headhunting, we're approaching passive job seekers, I always say to my clients, the highest value job seeker candidate is the one who's not actively looking. It's the one where we headhunt them. It's the one where they're not looking for a job. They're approached by an opportunity and they only change because everything is superior and everything lines up. The next person that is super high value is the person who is, whether they're working or not, is a high value applicant where they know what they're looking for. They've taken the time to put all of their ducks in a row. Their LinkedIn's great. The resume's great. They know what they're looking for, and they're applying for positions where there is directly identifiable correlation to the role that they've done in the past and the accomplishments and values that they bring to the table. Again, I am an accountant in the mining industry and you're a mining company looking for an accountant. Easy to draw those connections. If you are an active job seeker and you're looking to make a change industries, change career path, change roles, whatever it may be, now you start to embark in a journey where it's not as easy to draw those lines together. And that is where it becomes, I believe, even more important for you to be able to articulate your understanding of that, the value you bring to the table, and why an employer who would otherwise reject your resume sight unseen would need a compelling reason to engage with you, which is going to be how you articulate outside of your resume what your story is, which is where your true value comes in. What are the path? What are the choices you've made? Why you've made them, and why this is now a great alignment. And I think if you fail to do that, then you need to recognize as a job seeker what type of job seeker you're going to be. And you're going to be more of a transactional one that's floating resumes, whether good or bad, to organizations. And I think, as you alluded to, once you've sent your resume, that's great. But trying to then, after the fact, if you've done all these steps right, to engage with the people that are ultimately going to be reviewing, seeing, and observing your resume, that you take a proactive approach to ensure that it gets as much visibility as it can in the right way. If you don't do that stuff, you are leaving opportunity on the table. And again, there's a strategy and approach, so you need to be very careful with how you do it. And none of those things are required, but if you do them and you do them the right way, then you can greatly elevate your externally perceived value, which can help you A, get in there, and B, like ask for top tiered compensation within the scope of the role that you're in seek of.
That's a great point. Yes. And that's what I really see the value of a cover letter to be. Since I work with people or women who want to change careers, it's usually not as easy of a fit like the accounting and the mining industry to another mining industry looking for accountant. We need to transfer some of the skills they have to new opportunities. And that's what I feel like the cover letter is a great tool. And it doesn't always have to be in the format of a cover letter. Now, a lot of times we send emails, so that can go right into an email and we attach the resume. But I'm telling my clients, you do the job for the recruiter, because the recruiter has a job with all these requirements they're trying to fill. And then they get your resume with everything you've done in the past. Now the recruiter has to look at those and be like, okay, how do they fit together? And that's the job you want to do in the cover letter, is already make it clear, like, okay, how do these two come together? How do they fit within each other? What are you looking for? What do I have to offer? Make it crystal clear that there is a fit. And then the recruiter feels like, okay, yes, even though it is a career changer, I see where that match is. I see why they're applying and why they're interested in the specific role. And I can see the value they bring in solving that problem or challenge that I'm hiring for.
Right. Yeah. Do you help them with resumes and cover letters?
Yes, I do. Yes. I do write most clients I write a brand new resume for, and then the cover letter, I give them a template, which is really more the format, not the words. But then for the first 2 or 3 applications, we do it together. A lot of times I really love the 2-column cover letters, where on one side it says this is the requirements of the job posting, and then on the other side we say, like, okay, this is exactly how I meet them and the accomplishments I have that back up that I have value in this area. Bring it to the point. It doesn't have to be long, and making it crystal clear how you are a fit for the role. So yes, I do help my clients with both of these pieces.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's fantastic. I mean, I know with each of these topics, there's probably a lot more we could dig in. I know specific to resumes, it's a whole monster in themselves. It could be like an hour topic, but I really do think like the path that you guide people through, or guide these women that are coming to you for help, about gaining clarity on your goals, finding a way to clearly communicate and articulate your value, and coming up with what we call value statements, networking, ultimately implementing an effective strategy. Highly recommend. These are great steps to take. If you're someone who needs that help, feel free to reach out to Theresa. Obviously, your social will be linked there. Outside of this, as we come to the end of this, is there anything else there, any advice or any other kind of key points, things that you think are important to highlight?
I mean, I think the most important thing I want people to know is that if you're in a career that is not making you happy and you feel stuck because you don't know where to take your career next, it is so worth to do that deep dive and figure out, what do you truly want to do? Because we spend so much time at work, and there is going to be a career out there that is fulfilling, that's going to make you happy, that challenges you and excites you in a really good way. And it is possible for you to find that. Don't settle for anything less, because you're really worth of finding the work that is meant for you.